Shane, I'm here with Ash from the misfiRE channel. Today we're going to feature my RX7. It's got a fully sequential 6-speed gearbox from HGT, but first we'll start with the engine, then we'll put it up on the hoist and we'll give you a look around under there. So it's got a PWR intercooler and radiator combo, custom piping, GDX 42 turbo. It's got a fully bridge-ported motor with Series 4 lightweight rotors, G-ready catch can. It's got a Microtech LT16C that powers it all. It's got a M&W CDI ignition with MSD coils and leads. Runs on E85. It's got a Walbro in-tank pump that feeds a surge tank with two Bosch 044s. It's got fully custom Aeroflow fuel fittings and lines. It's got the 6-speed sequential HGT gearbox with a direct clutch twin plate. It's got a Cusco 1.5 way differential in it as well, which is a new addition along with the gearbox.
And we're going to check both those out in a minute when we put it up on the hoist.
Definitely. It's a custom body kit. It actually came with the car when I bought it. It's taken me a little while to grow into it, but the brakes are XYZ FD upgrade kit. So it's got 6 pot fronts and 4 pots on the rear, and 355mm discs all the way around. So one of the best things that I ever did to this car. It stops really well, and I never have to come off and let the brakes cool down or anything like that, you know what I mean? It just keep doing laps and laps and laps. So
and what diameter rims are they?
Yep, so I got 19-inch rims with the 295 semi-slicks on the back, Toyo R888s.
Mate, how have you found using the sequential on the street?
Yeah, it's been good. Obviously a lot to get used to, but in terms of drivability and smoothness, it's pretty good. Yeah, I like it.
What advice do you have for people looking at doing the conversion in their FDs?
Oh, hey, if you're in that position, it's chalk and cheese the difference, you know what I mean? Especially on the racetrack, it's a dream to drive.
How quick are the gear changes as well? Like, have you ever been in an R35, for example? Because they're pretty fast.
I haven't been in one, but I've just raced them. I'd say that it's pretty much on par with those. Yeah.
How'd you go against the 35? Because you know I've got one, mate.
I didn't know that.
Well, now you do, and everyone else does.
I actually, I raced one on Saturday at the track day, and he sort of gets me right off the go, but I can reel him in by the end, so
nice.
Yeah, goes all right. First off, we've got the eBoost 2. I've got 3 stages of boost settings for that. Got the oil pressure, oil temperature, and then HGT 6-speed. Might not be able to see it, but down here I've got the gear display, tells me what gear it's actually in.
How do you actually work this thing?
Alright, so it's just quite simple actually. It's literally just you pull back and then back and back and back and back to go up the gears. So, and then don't have to use the clutch when I go up gears. I use the clutch to go into first. So this is in neutral. It comes up as a 0 for neutral. So clutch in, usually let it be in for a few seconds, and then it goes into first gear nice. I usually just use the clutch when I'm driving normally on the road. If I'm going to be going fast on the racetrack, then I don't have to use the clutch, I can just pull.
What sort of temps does this thing run?
Typically around 88 to 90 degrees. As the weather's been warming up, I noticed my oil temperatures have been climbing to around 100, 110 degrees, so it does eventually drag the water temperature up with it. So I'm looking at getting a twin oil cooler set up for it, just to try and help with those oil temperatures.
And what sort of horsepower does it make at the moment?
So last tune was 561 horsepower at the wheels on 20 pound.
Okay, Shane, what's going on underneath this thing then?
Alright, so we'll start with the fuel setup. It's got a Walbro in-tank pump which feeds the surge tank. Twin Bosch 044s that drive the fuel from the surge tank to the engine. It's got the upgraded XYZ package, 4 pots on the rear.
AES muffler, yep. And 4-inch.
Yeah, 4-inch exhaust all the way. HGT 6-speed sequential, so looks nice and pretty under here. It's a shame it's tucked away, but yeah, it is what it is.
Who installed the gearbox in this thing?
Yep, so M1 safety certificates, they installed it, they did the diff and and the clutch as well at the same time.
And that was bought from Richard Fleming from HGT over in NZ?
Yep. So Richard was the guy that we were talking to back and forward about it all, and now he's really excited about getting it into another car and obviously showing the brand off and what it can do. So far I'm really happy with it. This
would be one of the first in Australia. So now the drive shaft, you mentioned before it's got a custom drive shaft or tail shaft.
Yeah.
Now are these mounts, this is what was purchased with the kit?
Yeah, so it'll all come as a kit. Yeah, literally all the mounts and everything was all with it. So it made it so much easier. There was no headaches of custom fabricating or anything like that.
Did you have to cut any holes up inside the tunnel at all?
A little bit of bashing, but it wasn't too bad.
Okay, so no cutting?
No.
Okay, well that's the key. Okay, and we've got, so HGT sequential 6. Now this cable here, that's for your reverse selector, is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's got a separate lockout for reverse. So that's what that's for.
Okay, now starter motor, what's the go with that?
All right, so I bought that off Marcus Reed as well. It's just a higher cranking one.
Now, I've noticed there is a bit of modification that you've had to do, or whether that's just being grinded off to fit that bell housing. That's just a small mod that people might need to be aware of. But that bell housing, that's a genuine HGT one, yeah?
Yeah, it is, yep, that all came with it as well.
And you can get those polished as well, I believe.
Yeah. You'd have to be
if
pretty
that's
keen.
your flavour.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So that's a direct clutch twin plate.
I'd almost put it in my FD just for the noise it makes.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, although you probably couldn't hear it in my pink one. Okay, so yeah, the only modification from what you're saying is this larger size starter motor. You haven't had to cut anything up into the tunnel at all.
Yeah.
Just had to bend it maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
But overall, and the tail shaft as well.
Yeah.
That would be it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a pretty straightforward swap.
Yeah,
it comes with all the brackets.
That's kind of why we got the kit, so it was as straightforward as it can be, and then there's just little things along the way like the starter motor grinding and stuff.
So how hard was it setting up the shift cut on this thing to get the actual, I guess, gear changer or gear selector to work properly?
Yeah, so it wasn't as straightforward as you would think. The Microtech doesn't have the capability of doing the flat shift or the shift cut, so we had to get a Geartronics ECU to receive the analog signal from the gearbox and convert it to digital and then send that to the Microtech. So there was a little bit of messing around with getting it, organised. But
did you have to send the Microtech to Microtech?
No, not at all. No, the boys at M1 sorted all that out, and Craig Dyson helped them out with some settings and that. So shout out to Craig, thanks very much.
So this gear knob, it didn't come with this, so we had to buy it separately due to the fact that Microtech doesn't have capability of shift cut.
Yep.
And what it does is when you refine it, it senses that and it triggers the Geartronics system. Geartronics sends an earth pulse to the Microtech to retard ignition. Now it lasts for about 150 milliseconds. It's not long, but obviously it doesn't need a lot of time to reef it back. For the setup, we have to be doing about above 2000 RPM, obviously to get it to work. But other than that, once you figure all that out, it's a pretty simple process of just tuning it.
Here's a question putting you on the spot. Can you have different tunes per gear with that setup that you're aware of?
Yes, you can. There is a capability where if you miss the 150 millisecond cutoff, there's about a 600 millisecond delay before you can do it again. But you can extend how long it retards for. But you gotta understand, it doesn't need a lot of time to actually turn off ignition and change gears. It's a very quick process, which you'll figure out when you road test it. So we have used 2 of the factory bolts to mount in, and then we just had to put a custom plate over the actual gear shift cutout originally. And we have a grommet here, just a generic one to stop sort of the wind noise coming through, because that was pretty violent.
Yep, and plus the heat as well.
Yeah, heat was a huge part of it, especially. And then we just have cutouts for reverse cable going through. And make it as factory in here as possible. We didn't want it to look stupid, or we want it to look good.
Yeah, and I think that looks as good as you're ever going to get it.
Yeah,
which is what you guys.
And we had a custom boot made up. So this uses the factory boot, and we just had it adjusted to fit around this, so you wouldn't get in the way of the reverse cable.
So let's find out how this thing goes.
All right.
Oh, fuck yeah, giddy up. That was wicked, man.
Thanks for watching my rotor on the misfiRE channel.